Hello, and welcome to the Asylum. I'm your host, Don. With me today, as almost always, is Jeremiah.
Hi.
There it is.
We're talking about horror films.
Yeah, so it turns out that we ran into a smidgen. A smidgen of a snafu when we discovered that the random movie from our random movie generator was actually a sequel. Thus, we bought ourselves into watching two movies for the price of one. So we're going to talk about
For you, it's a 3-for-1 deal.
Yeah, right, geez. So we're going to talk about Hansel and Gretel, which is the first movie in the series this week. And then next week, you guys will have the joy of listening to us talk about Hansel versus Gretel, which is a direct sequel.
Unless we just decided to shove them both in the same conversation and then skip a week.
That's also an option. So yes, Hansel and Gretel. So first of all, you guys will see a small video from me popping up here in the future. That is a review of Hansel and Gretel, Warriors of Witchcraft. Because as Jeremiah alluded to, I watched the wrong movie. So it turns out that Lionsgate...
You could have accidentally watched Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters and had a good movie.
I wish that had happened. No, so it turns out that Lionsgate also made a Hansel and Gretel movie in 2013 that is available on Tubi, that is absolute garbage, and is approximately 1.5 hours long. So how was I supposed to know that I had watched the wrong video until I tried to watch the sequel and was like, these movies have nothing to do with each other? Interesting. Also,
except the movie starts off by saying an Asylum production.
Yeah. Also, the plot of the second movie is basically the plot of Hansel and Gretel, Warriors of Witchcraft, except roles are reversed. But otherwise, the same movie. But more on that on a different video. Today, we are talking about Hansel and Gretel, the 2013 Asylum, dare I say, masterpiece?
Starring Brent, who looks an awful lot like an SNL actor from nowadays, but it's not him. He's not actually in anything that you would have thought of. And has Stephanie Greco, and hamming it up like crazy, Dee Wallace, who's probably the main person in this movie that people would recognize from everything. She was in E.T., she's in Cujo, she's in Critters, she's in The Howling.
She's a scream queen.
Apparently, she's in the Asylum Little Mermaid movie, which we will not be watching. But she's in a lot of stuff. She was in the new Jeepers Creepers.
She was in 13 Fanboy, which I did a review on.
She was in The Munsters, the Rob Zombie movie.
Interesting.
But she's in a lot of stuff. She's definitely well known.
Yeah.
And she acts like it here. I could have sworn Brent Lydic, who plays Hansel Grimm. I didn't realize that Hansel and Gretel and the last name is Grimm. But okay.
I didn't hear a single last name drop throughout that movie.
Sure. Well, apparently they're the only ones with the last name.
Nice.
But he
and Dad Grimm.
He looked familiar, but I've not seen him in anything beyond these two movies now. Oh. I will say this movie starts off with an interesting hook. This looks like a Latina girl's running through the woods, gets caught in what looks like a bear trap, but it also looks like a snare of like a plant that breaks her leg in the kind of the weirdest, gooeyest fashion. Like I wasn't aware that like fat from like pork fat comes out of your leg when you break it, but it sure looked like something like that. And then you see her being tied up with like vegetables put on her, and she's cooked in an oven. And then it cuts to the gingerbread house bakery where they're selling meat pies and stuff. And you instantly, if you don't know what's going on, you're not writing.
Subtlety is not this movie's strong point. This movie is very in your face about what the premise is. But yeah, so then we get introduced to Gretel, who is an assistant at the gingerbread house, and she works for Lilith, who obviously has to be the sweetest lady ever to live because her name is just angelic, you know?
I will say this. I don't know if you noticed in the opening credits, there's 3 credited writers for this movie. One is Jose Prendes. The other 2 writers that they credit for this movie are Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm. As in, like, screen credited writers.
All right.
They did not write this movie, but okay. Jose Prendes, though, has written other things. I know we're going to see some of the stuff that he wrote soon enough because he wrote Headless Horseman, which is a 2022 one. The knockoff of La Llorona, The Legend of La Llorona, I'm pretty sure this is the knockoff version. Was Danny Trejo in the other one?
I don't think so.
Okay, so this is a different version of La Llorona, one that wasn't accidentally put into the Conjuring universe, even though it's not supposed to. Whatever. He also wrote Mega Shark versus Mecha Shark, so we'll be seeing more of his stuff. Haunting in Winchester House was his, unfortunately, but he only did the story. He didn't do the actual script. So sure. And the director is not our man. This is Anthony C. Ferrante, who is best known for Sharknado.
Oh.
So he actually has fun with his movies.
Yeah.
He's also done a movie called Boo, which is apparently well known.
Is that the one with Ben Affleck's little brother?
Yeah. Zombie Tidal Wave was his, which is one I've seen, which I enjoyed in the vein of Sharknado-ness. But yeah, Sharknado is his claim to fame, and I will say this movie is definitely made more competently than probably 90% of Asylum movies, with a budget that's significantly less than most of them.
So, I've said this before. This movie's not half bad. I would give it 34% bad. It's clearly an Asylum film. The plot is generic and not really. There's parts of it that are just not fleshed out at all. Like they set up the dad's girlfriend / fiance, Ruby, and you're like, oh, cool, this is gonna be an interesting character, and then they just kill her off completely.
But I will say this: it does better with folktale than King Arthur did with King Arthur.
That is true. This is definitely a better, like, modern retelling of a folktale, for sure. So we get introduced to our main characters, which we met Gretel at the gingerbread house, and then her dad and his girlfriend come to see her. They're all supposed to be having dinner together, and Hansel is nowhere to be found because he is in Afghanistan.
In Call of Duty.
Yeah, so he's playing video games and he lost track of time. So he shows up late and just starts chomping down, just munching down on food. Just no hesitation, all abandoned completely. It's like
bragging about his video games.
True. Just overtly talking about video games like they're important. It's great. I loved it. Then dad drops the bombshell that he's getting married to Ruby, and that plot line goes nowhere.
Who's a much younger woman.
To a much younger woman.
Not that it matters, but
much younger. Then Hansel gets angry and storms out and gets caught in a bear trap.
Yes, and so basically that ends up in them ending up at Lilith's house, which is, of course, the quote-unquote gingerbread house, so to speak, where they have people locked in the basement that they're cooking. Hansel gets locked down there, Gretel gets drugged, and then like inherits the bakery with a blood pact, and then shackled.
Yeah.
And you find out Lilith has 2 kids there. At least I think they're her kids. It might just be her like servants.
But she talks about it. There's a photo.
John and Kevin, I think it's the other one. They look like someone out of a Rob Zombie movie. In fact, I wouldn't have been shocked if one was Rob Zombie.
They're her physical enforcers. They do all the heavy lifting, essentially. Then we get introduced to 3 other people that are locked in the basement. Cute girl, less cute girl, rude guy.
Less cute girl gets baked pretty early.
Yeah, so less cute girl gets murdered. That's how we find out what's going on, or how Hansel finds out what's going on. Then they throw Gretel in there because she refuses to, because also unimportant or other random factoid they threw in there that has nothing to do with the plot at all is that Gretel's a vegetarian. So she refuses to eat the meat pie because she's a vegetarian. So they throw her in there, and so then they have to break out. They kill a bunch of people.
And the cuter of the prisoners, I think her name was Jane. Yeah, because Jane basically sacrifices herself, so to speak, or so they say, so they can all get out. They take her to the oven. Hansel and Gretel go to rescue Jane. The other guy goes to escape. He makes it out, gets shot with an arrow, but the guy who shoots him doesn't finish him off because he gets called in. Which funny thing is, the guy who gets shot with an arrow then gets hit by a car by the sheriff, and then dies before really telling anything. But the sheriff is there because the deputy goes and checks out the bakery. He gets a call to go check out there, and he's like, wait, why are you open? Why are you even here? Where's Gretel? And there's like a note that says, I left town. He's like, this is not even her handwriting. What is it? Because it's like fancy handwriting.
Yeah.
And so then, Lilith just like beats him to death with one hit with a rolling pin, like pops his head like a grape.
The stupid part is that he immediately turns his back on her. Like, he's there. He knows something weird's going on. She has a fake runaway note, which is just setting off alarm bells in his brain. And then he goes, I got to call this in. Nothing bad.
But like one hit with a rolling pin busts his head like a grape.
Like a overripe watermelon. It was great.
And then the sheriff can hear that on the other side, and he's just like, well, lunch done.
And he was on the phone. He had tried to call the sheriff, and he left a voicemail. So the sheriff...
Well, I thought the sheriff actually answered, and it wasn't a voicemail. I thought it was just literally
he got the voicemail. But he hears the voicemail, and it's literally, hey, sheriff, there's something mysterious going on. What?
At the gingerbread house, and then you hear
whack.
But the actor's name is Adrian Bustamante. That's a cool last name. I'm sorry, if your name is Bustamante, we'll go with it. And so the sheriff goes to investigate, finds blood there, and then goes off into the woods, starts hearing creepy stuff. Sees one of the boys chasing Hansel and Gretel who had escaped the house. He shoots Hansel with an arrow, and so he just like unloads a clip into the guy. And then like goes back to his car where Lilith gets a direct shot with an arrow down his throat. Which I don't think would kill you that fast unless they hit your brainstem.
No, that would probably a really painful way to die, honestly.
Like you'd have trouble breathing, but like
and out the back, and like you're just gonna be bleeding a lot, but
unless you got your brainstem, it wouldn't instantly kill you.
Definitely not a kill shot.
But it doesn't matter. She is apparently really good with an arrow. And
then, unimportantly, Dad and Ruby show up.
And die.
Well, Dad doesn't die.
He gets stabbed with a pitchfork and then like is holding the pitchfork into his stomach. And then Ruby gets her throat cut. A lot of throat cutting in this movie.
This movie has a lot of graphic body horror violence. Because there's that whole scene where they get drugged with the aerosol or whatever. And then...
where they get messed with mind messes, and like one where the guy's like eating his own intestine. He's like, I taste good. Not like Brothers Grimm where it's funny in a gingerbread man. But he starts eating his arm and pulling out his own intestine, and then he's trying to escape, and it's like an intestine gets stuck on something. And then Gretel sees Demon Lilith and is attacking her, and then what happened? And then the other girl, she gets her head smashed in? No.
Yeah, she has her head smashed in.
In her
while
dream.
they're
No, not
drugged,
her
I think.
dream. No, in her dream, though, I thought she died a different way. But it doesn't
She
matter.
did.
They all died terribly
They
in
all
their
die
dreams.
terribly in their dream. But then Hansel and Gretel are fine. Jane actually dies. And then Gretel comes up with the genius idea that they're going to kill Lilith by baking her alive in her own oven.
Because that's
just
what you
like
do
in
to
the
witches.
story.
You burn them.
Yeah.
You burn witches.
Correct.
And so they trick her to get inside there, and they do turn the oven on, kill her. And then they go to the bakery, and Hansel's like, "Whoa, why you leave? You own this, but you better leave." And then Gretel like stabs a pie, and then like Lilith comes out into her, and she opens the bakery up.
So there was a line that Lilith delivered earlier where she told Gretel that she chose her because she could tell that she was like her. Again, Gretel's a vegetarian. And they get to live forever by eating the flesh of the youth, much like Hillary Clinton. So
I will say this, I really enjoy. I watched this on YouTube. Another one that's free on YouTube, and the comments are the number one comment is, I came here to read the comments of people who never finished the movie, or to see who actually finished the movie, because last 5 seconds is the twist, and then it cuts.
Yes. So Gretel eats the pie, which now means that not only has she inherited Lilith's shop, but she's now essentially the new Lilith. That's the implication. And then that's the end of the movie, and we get the sequel that came out 2 years later, but takes place 1 year later.
So okay, I'm gonna share some photos from this movie. Movie looks fine. Like I have no really complaint about the look of this movie.
The cinematography was fine. They had some good, just like creepy body horror. The plot is meh, but it's at least written right. It's not too out there. There's just a lot of just little like threads they left,
and it stays within its means. Like
yes.
It's not like, oh, we're going to make this giant sci-fi adventure with the money to buy a shoe.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, there's overall, like I said, it's 32%, 34% bad. Like it's not.
So this is Gretel with one of Lilith's boys.
Yep.
It looks like a Rob Zombie character. This is Hansel when one of the times he's eating stuff that you just know you shouldn't be eating. There's Lilith.
Freaking out.
Being cranky. Another one of her boys. It's Hansel and Gretel.
Hansel gets the crap kicked out of him throughout.
He gets stabbed a lot.
He just gets the first thing that happens to him is he gets his leg caught in a bear trap.
Like this cover, actually, honestly, this cover is not that bad for as far as a Asylum movie. It's not bad.
Concur. This is where they learned that their dad.
That's a weird shot. I don't remember it ever looking this bad. I think it's just a bad still.
Yeah, it's a bad photo.
That's when he gets caught in a bear trap and she's working on him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Her freaking out that Lilith is insane.
True.
Dee's just having fun, just hamming the heck up.
Hamming it up.
Hey, she's famous for a dog terrorizing her. It's her and her boys with their oven. And that's it for this one. I'll say as far as Asylum movies goes, this one's perfectly fine. It stays within its budget. It has a really low budget, like $130,000. Stays within its budget. I know looking at reviews, people say it's better to go for a walk than watch this movie. Not the worst Asylum movie. Not.
This falls into that like Asylum made a respectable movie category where it's not like funny. It's not like Shark Side of the Moon where it's just ridiculous. It's not like Zombies, right? It's just a run of the mill retelling of Hansel and Gretel in a horror fashion. Like that's it. So I wouldn't honestly recommend this movie to anybody because it's kind of generic. But as far as Asylum goes, this is actually a pretty good Asylum film.
And it does
It's
an
just
interesting twist on it. It's meat pies. I will say this movie's gross. There's a lot of eating your own body, and that is gross. Like I can handle meat pies. I've definitely seen that in movies before, but like I don't really like people just eating their own bodies. That is gross. But like the sound, the actors, nothing's offensively bad, which is funny because you were telling me how bad like all the actors were and how unhot everyone was except Gretel. Like I'm watching this movie going, I don't understand what you're watching, but Gretel doesn't look ugly. What are you talking about? And there's not many other people in this movie to understand. Like who are you comparing to?
I made a meme about it because the other one takes place in a high school with high school age actors. So yeah. But no, there's nothing wrong with this movie. It's just a run-of-the-mill B horror film that was competently made. And yeah, I wouldn't recommend it because I'm not going to be like, it's not on my list of great movies to watch. But if you're bored and you really like Hansel and Gretel for some reason, then it's not bad. You should check it out.
And you don't want to watch Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters, which is significantly better. There was one that came out a couple of years ago too, or maybe last year that probably is better than this one too. I went to theater, so it's probably better. But being that I have a lot less to say about it, let's talk about the sequel now because Hansel versus Gretel happened.
Yes. So
the same writers there, Jose Puentes, but not the Brothers Grimm. The Brothers Grimm did not rise from the dead to write the sequel. Correct. Same writer came back though, and the same actor for Hansel, but not the same actress for Gretel.
Yes, she had more important things to do.
And a different director. This one is now done by... So the Sharknado guy was busy making money with Sharknado movies and having fun. And so they hired Ben Desmarais to do the sequel. And Ben Desmarais made Bigfoot... was the director... Was the cinematographer for Bigfoot.
Classic. Did he design the statue?
No, it says camera and electrical department. He also did a classic movie that I have seen called Jersey Shore Shark Attack. Battle Los Angeles is his. Sharktopus is his. Titanic 2 he helped film. Being that a lot of people he helped. I like it always say that he was a gaffer in War of the Worlds 2.
Around the block. He's
a gaffer in 30,000. But so he's worked for Asylum for a while, so he was hired to do this movie. And I'm just gonna say this up front: this movie's trash. So it's like they wanted to do The Craft before The Craft Legacy came back.
The quote I gave Jeremiah was, trash. The first one was not half bad. This one is at least 64% bad.
So this movie has basically Hansel's out there hunting and murdering witches who are also trying to kill him. Like he starts off with him like capturing a cheerleader and then offing her after saying the most wonderful line ever, saying, "I'm just here for all the little girls."
So Hansel has essentially become the Winchester brothers from
Or Jeremy Renner's character.
Yes.
Without a Gatling gun.
Without a Gatling gun.
So he does use a pistol a lot and just offs people. He is a serial killer by now.
This movie has a lot of deaths. It's got a pretty good kill count.
And Gretel has taken over the bakery and is pretending to be good, but we all know she's evil. It starts off with a guy who basically walks into a closed bakery, which you don't do anyway, and is like, "I'm just going to leave some money here for your meat pies that have been left in the display case all night." Because, meat just left out is perfectly acceptable to eat, because there's no reason to throw that away. Bakeries don't just throw their food away at night, right? He eats some and then he gets murdered.
He gets another overripe watermelon head explosion.
There's a lot of those in this movie, though.
Via stomp. So whomstever killed him had some friggin' strong Chun-Li level leg strength. And I
will say this about this movie. So there's a coven of witches who are all pretty good looking. One of them, who's Sithonia, who's played apparently by her name is spelled Jhey. So I want to say Hay Castle, but I don't think that's probably correct. But she reminded me a lot of the main of Mariska Hargitay from Law and Order SVU when she was younger. There's another one who plays. IMDb says Circa, but it's Circe. There's Alicia Chris, who's a Bollywood actress who's hot.
Yeah, she is.
All the witches are hot. Okay.
Yes.
Except for a couple at the end.
Except for the cameo at the end. That's not.
And there's Kiki Mora, I think his name is Lee, and Morai, which is Abinet Nas. She has a very indigenous name. I can't. Nas Imana. We'll say that. So basically, it's Hansel trying to hunt down a coven of witches, not realizing that Gretel's actually also a witch and offing people.
So Hansel finds the newspaper report about the guy dying or disappearing. So he comes to see Gretel because there's been a couple of people who's been disappearing and she hasn't been talking to him. So he comes to see her. We get introduced to the guy who died's brother, Jacob, who's gay, and Willie, who I had assumed was like dating him. But I thought
Willie was Jane. Okay, I thought Willie was Jane from the first one, and I was confused because they look similar enough. And I thought they were gonna, if she had survived the first one, it would have been Hansel, but she acted like she was supposed to. And then the first time they introduce it, when they say so and so is so and so now, I thought I misheard it the first time. And I was like, oh, so they recast the character of the first movie and gave him a sex change? Because I thought they literally said this guy from the first one is now a girl. And I was like, oh, that's how they get away with recasting, the sex change. Okay, whatever. And then the first person they show is this really creepy lady they just call Bag Lady. And I was like, oh, that's not very nice. I thought that's the person they were seeing. Like, she's just like hitting a tire swing in the backyard for reasons and like attacking a rabbit.
Yes.
Of which is also like a weird plastic bunny that comes alive in a tub, and Hansel just like straight up stabs the thing in the face.
The plot to this movie is literally all over the place. It just
coven of witches want to kill Hansel.
Yes.
They think they want to kill Gretel as well, but then they realize Gretel is a witch just like them. Gretel's actually offing them. She offs a hottest one first, which is unfortunate because she was hot.
Yes.
And then the witches don't realize till the end that Gretel's actually pretty much boss lady with Lilith inside her.
Yeah, so what's his name? Hansel explains that like there's some people who are witches that eat other people to maintain their youth, and then there's other ones that actually have powers. Lilith was one that has powers. I think at this point, at the beginning of the movie, Gretel doesn't have any powers. But she is slowly using Hansel to kill off the coven, and then she eats them and then gains their powers. So she goes from like no power to complete over the top, the queen, as she refers to herself.
And pretty much everyone in this movie gets murdered, either by Hansel or Gretel.
Yes.
And then like even like Gretel, like one of my favorite scenes in this one is because like Hansel's trying to head home because he told Gretel to go to Grandma's house because Jacob, who was supposed to be with Gretel, got murdered by Gretel. And so he gets home. He gets in there right when Gretel's ripping off Grandma's head. And he's like, why do you rip off Grandma's head? Really? That's what you ask when you see your sister ripping off an old lady's head?
He goes, Gretel, what are you doing? And she goes, I can explain. And then he goes, you can explain ripping off Grandma's head. And then Gretel goes,
Nope,
I can't explain. Just like, all right. Yeah, so Gretel plays everybody for a fool throughout this whole movie.
And she's a different actress, and I don't like her near as much as the first one. She felt way more homebody, if that makes sense. Like weirdly miscast. I will say, though, the actress for Willie, who is very good looking as well. I was like trying to figure out where I knew her the entire time. Then I realized I saw her in a movie earlier this week because she's in the movie Fighting with My Family, the WWE movie.
Liz?
She's Kirsten. She's one of the opponents in the ring where they have like the little mouth off microphone talks with. She is in that, and I had just watched it.
Fighting with My Family, not a bad movie. I enjoyed it.
Way better than this movie. She was also in Flight World War II.
Ooh. Oh yeah, that's right. I remember looking that up. Yeah.
She's in Flight World War II. Like, she was perfectly fine throughout, and is one of the reasons why I got pissed off with this movie. So I'm just gonna say this. Coven stuff, witches get offed. They end up in this field where Gretel basically resurrects Lilith.
Cemetery. It was a pet cemetery.
Yep. Resurrects Lilith. Lilith gets pissed off at the last remaining witch in the coven, basically saying, "You suck. You came here to take my stuff." Kills her. And Lilith is played by a different actress. They try to like stick makeup all over her face so she looks kind of like it, but the wig is terrible and the makeup is pretty terrible.
Also, she's like desiccated or whatever.
But like the shape of her face is different.
Completely different, yeah.
And then Willie, who is with Hansel, like Hansel, they kiss, and Hansel's like, "We need to get out of here." And she's like, "Aha, no, I've been," rips off her face. "I've been a witch this whole time," and she is Crone. They don't have an act. They don't have a character thing for her. She's just called Crone. And then Crone goes out there and starts yelling at Lilith. I'm not exactly sure what the heck is going on. I think they're like witch rivals.
Crone, I think, is Lilith's sister because they refer to Lilith having a sister a couple of times. I think she's Lilith's sister and is like a very powerful witch, I think.
But Willie's apparently been dead for a long time.
Yeah, and she's just been impersonating her.
And then they just kind of yell at each other. And then there's like a fight that involves Gretel and Lilith. But Crone just gets like her neck sliced by Hansel and just like cuts her head off. But then comes back at the end anyway, I think. And then Lilith, I'm not 100%. This end fight, I am not 100% sure what happened. Beyond it ends with basically everyone dead, cops arrive, and Hansel just walks off with Gretel because that's exactly what happened when cops show up at a murder scene where there's just bodies everywhere.
Beware.
And he literally shot most of them.
Yes. This movie is garbage. It is.
The ending could have saved it a bit because there's enough eye candy in this one, and it is filmed okay, but
and the parts of the plot aren't bad. It's just, and the dialogue's not bad. It's just, it just falls apart completely. And then it's one of those movies where like the ending makes no sense and it ruins everything else.
So the poster, fine. That's the witch that looks kind of like the one from Mariska Hargitay from SVU, who's was pretty hot when she was young. And that's Gretel.
Yep.
I'm assuming that's directing. Yeah, it says Bendemeier's directing. Okay. That is Lilith in this one.
Yep.
Back to those two again. How come then we have these two? There's Lilith again. And Lilith again. And that's all the photos for this movie. I'll say this, the hot witch, I'll say, is this one. She is too hot for this movie.
Cersei, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Alicia Chris. But it's funny, she was a host for the Travel Channel, which I believe. I can believe that. Apparently she is known for travel shows. She's not really known for a lot of movies, but
my dream job would be to be one of the people on a travel show. Like, just travel the world and get paid for it and talk about it. That's just an amazing job. But yeah, so that wraps up the Hansel and Gretel for me trilogy, for Jeremiah duology.
Punishment.
So yeah. So that also wraps up the month of September, which leads us into Spoopy month. So we agonized over what to do. Jeremiah, your face. So
I can't hide my face anymore.
Over what to do for Spoop Month, for Welcome to the Asylum and Let's Talk Spoop itself. And we came up with watching every vampire.
Hopefully least painful way of doing this.
Yes. So we're going to watch every vampire Asylum film, which from what we've been able to discover is 3, one for each week, leading up to the final week. And then for the final week of October, we are going to watch, Jeremiah?
Sinister Squad? Which is a sequel to Avengers Grimm.
Avengers Grimm 2 specifically. But
And mind you,
Avengers
this
Grimm.
movie we just saw is a spin-off of some type of that movie.
Yes.
That's why it exists.
Which I'm
That's why
excited
they call it Brothers Hansel and Gretel Brothers Grimm. Even though they weren't brothers, they were brother and sister. Unless Gretel's very different than I thought.
That explains the recasting. But yeah, so we're gonna watch 3 vampire asylum movies, and then we're gonna end it with the Sinister Squad, which is the 3rd Avengers Grimm movie, and once again has a different Rumpelstiltskin.
Of course it does.
Of course.
So which vampire one are we going to start with?
I think it's Dracula's Curse was the first one.
So you want to start with the oldest or the newest first?
The oldest. Because hopefully it gets better as we go.
One of them is competing with Morbius.
Yes. So it's Dracula's Curse, Vampires versus Zombies, and Dracula the Original Vampire. Dracula the Original Vampire being a mockbuster for the greatest film of all time, Morbius.
That people got Sony to release in theaters multiple times to fail again.
So that's what we're going to be doing on Welcome to the Asylum. For Let's Talk Spoop, I will be attempting to watch all 5 Omen movies, and then I will do a tier video at the end to wrap up Halloween for Let's Talk Spoop. Wish me luck on that. I've seen, I want to say 1, 2, and the remake already. However, I don't really remember them that well. All I remember is that the first one freaked me out so bad that I had trouble sleeping for a week when I was young.
Clearly, you should watch the Asylum versions of that story, which I'm pretty sure is that Child 666 series.
Yeah, that's also a thing.
Can that be worse than 12, 12, 12? Yes, it could, actually.
Tempt the Asylum, Jeremy. The Asylum is a fickle god. Do not tempt it. But yeah, so thank you for watching. Welcome to the Asylum. Please leave comments in the comment section down below. I don't have a cool saying like Brian does, but, be polite or, see your way out.
Awesome.
Okay, thanks. Bye.